Welcome to the new Rainmaker podcast, a weekly show for visionary founders and team members alike to come together and share the heartfelt, the cringe, and the radically honest truths about what it's really like to build and work for some of the world's most exposed brands on the biggest internet stages. I'm your host, Veronica Romney, and after working for some of the biggest names in the online space myself, I've learned that it takes both leadership and dream team collaboration to truly scale a company to its greatest potential. You can build a business alone, but you cannot scale it on your own. And my goal on today's episode and every episode is to inspire our dreamers and empower our leaders. Make sure to follow and share my podcast with your friends and colleagues, and feel free to tag me on Instagram at vromney with your insights and ahas. Now let's make it rain on today's episode. Hey, Rainmaker podcast. I have a conversation that I want to bring to the forefront because I have strong opinions about what marketers should do and not do. So a Rainmaker, a full-time marketing leader, right? They bring the product to the marketplace. But how many times do we see marketing get dragged in, pulled in into either making the product or in the weeds of the product? And I just have some strong opinions. So I invited a special guest who is the queen when it comes to creating particular products. In fact, courses, a course designer of our dreams. And so she's here to talk about this involvement. At what point should a Rainmaker, a marketing influence, come into a product creation process? When should they definitely not be there? How do they set boundaries? It's going to be a really great, fruitful conversation around where does marketing lie in responsibilities and influence when it comes to creating a product? So let me introduce my friend and a member of the Rainmaker residency program, Ariel from DreamPro. Ariel, welcome to the Rainmaker podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation. It'll be good.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Will you do me a favor and introduce yourself to the podcast community?
Sure. This will probably be the hardest question that I answered. So my name is Ariel Schiffer. I'm the founder and CEO of DreamPro, and our mission is to improve the quality of learning in the online business industry. So really helping to elevate creators, empower people to turn their expertise into courses. And we do this through our super awesome agency. We also have our own digital offerings and a few other projects in the works, like always, that we're developing to really just bring people together in our network and help them, generally speaking, explode their businesses. So, yeah.
Well, and courses are hot. I mean, I keep seeing all these studies of formal institutions and, graduate programs and things like that starting to close their doors because most of us would like to learn from those who have done or gone before us as opposed to just studying good principles. And so courses are like the hottest thing ever. It is not the most passive thing ever, but it is the hottest, one of the hottest mediums in which you can package up thought leadership expertise and bring it to the world, which is essentially what a lot of my Rainmakers are doing. A lot of marketing leaders, we're bringing courses to the marketplace. We do it through launches. We do it through Evergreen. We are bringing this, mystical, magical thing to the marketplace for purchase and deciding all the wrapping paper around it. But I have also been behind the scenes of a lot of companies where it was marketing's job to make the product and then also sell it, market it. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Because I have strong boundaries.
Yeah.
Marketing doesn't make products. But I'm curious from your perspective, because you work with a variety of clients as an agency model. How often do you see a Rainmaker on a call? How often are you exposed to that particular role versus who do you normally work with when making courses?
Yeah. So I think you will love this answer. Two things. One, I think the Rainmaker should be more involved. And two, I do not think the Rainmaker should create the product. So,
Amen.
First things first, what's interesting is, and for people who are not familiar with the ins and outs of our business, so unless you work with us, you probably don't, but we work with all different types of people. We work with people who are typically might have a small team, like maybe 1 to 3 people. We work with companies that have much larger teams, a physical footprint. We work with all different types of companies, industries, etc. So typically though, it's small company. That being said, what's interesting is we work a lot of times with the visionary, the CEO, and this is their brain baby. This is their opportunity to get everything that they have in their brain out into a way that's easy for people to consume. And what's interesting about that is, obviously requires a lot of time from the visionary. Even though we are a full service agency, we need an opportunity to get inside of that visionary's head. But a lot of our clients do not bring the Rainmaker really into the process, and I wish that they did. And I will say, I don't think a lot of our clients have a Rainmaker, and I wish they
Yeah.
did. So,
Me too.
yeah, so that's the caveat there. It's sometimes I don't think they're necessarily like they don't exist, right? But if
Yeah.
they did exist, or if they will exist, what I think would be the best placement for them is first is in the beginning of the project, maybe even before approaching us. You know, we do help with some market research and we'll do competitor analysis and we'll
Mm.
provide our own perspective of like really where we see there being a really great fit for their product. Because ultimately, there's so many courses out there, right? But at the end of the day, we want our clients, regardless of what the subject matter is, to have a really unique product and a really unique differentiator. So that way they can say, this is why you should buy my course as opposed to all the other ones, or whatever else is going on. And so that being said, thinking about ideal scenario, having a Rainmaker marketer be able to really just, and I think this is probably the core of what a Rainmaker does, right? Really truly understand the type of people that you're serving, who they are, what they need help with, what they usually come across, where they get stuck, what types of things they've tried. Like really knowing the ins and outs of the person that you want to take your course will always put your product on top, because people would
Mm.
rather seek out an opportunity to learn from somebody who truly knows them versus somebody that's just trying to make a quick buck and put something out there that's just information. People aren't looking, they're looking for information. We're in the information age, but they're looking for not just information, they're looking for an experience. So the marketer, and typically this is the CEO, but it is great when it is the marketer to truly know, hey, these people need this, and this is the opportunity here. This is where our product suite
Mm-hmm.
really experiencing a gap, and this is how we can bridge that gap, right? So in the upfront, definitely a high valued thing, because as much as hiring an agency like ours or somebody else is valuable in terms of providing a perspective that maybe you don't have and being able to see from an outside view, ultimately you want somebody who also knows the ins and outs of your business and can speak to your customer and your client, because there's no way we can learn the years of information and data that you probably have, right? So I would say they're in the forefront.
Oh my
I'll pause because
gosh.
it sounds like you have some thoughts about that.
Well, I always have some thoughts. I do have thoughts because that's interesting because to your point, a lot of companies don't have the presence or the luxury of having a marketing leader who is separate than just the CEO. So you have a CEO who's, and I see this all the time, right? Like a CEO who has to play CMO too, so has to perform both functions. I am thought leader, I am chief executive officer, I'm also my own chief marketing officer. So I have to like solicit myself or like promote myself, and that's why like great marketers are really, they can't market themselves because we're like all up in our jar. We can't see our label through the jar objectively. It's just impossible. So you have the CEO that comes to you, they want to package their expertise in a course in this kind of online education modality. And they, and some, correct me if I'm wrong, would you say that most CEOs, most of your clients, their avatar is a former version of themselves, or is it a completely different avatar audience? I'm curious.
I would say a little bit of both, because
Okay.
a lot of times we work with like coaches and consultants. I will say like coaches are probably the majority of people that are creating a product based on like a former version of themselves. But we work with a lot of other types of businesses where it's just totally different across the board. Yeah.
Okay. So this is where I see CEOs fail and not fail as being their own CMO. So I see CEOs be really successful in being their own kind of marketing arm when they are the avatar, when their past is a version of their present avatar. It's why it's so easy for them to play marketer, because they are the walking empathy. They are the walking avatar. They know or have known or very recently felt the pains that they're now making something to solve for a previous version of themselves. Where a lot of CEOs, I think, will struggle in being their own rainmakers, their own, marketers, is when the avatar is completely unique to that experience because they don't have empathy as their competitive advantage.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting. That's one of the thoughts that I had. But the other thought that I had about what you shared about having the benefit of having a marketing perspective early on in a product development process is because they're bringing to you market research, which is, you're 100% right. Like that is very much the marketer's job, is to find opportunities in a marketplace to exploit and to create revenue, generating opportunities from. And so the fact that they, in an ideal world, your agency wouldn't even have to do market research because it's already being provided for you. Like, this is our avatar, this is their pain point, this is their aspirations. Like, it's like, Donald Miller's Story Brand 101. Like, it's, some version of that kind of research that they're bringing to you, that it would inform you on how to make the best product possible. But I also love working with killer partners, external vendors like yourself, because even if let's say I am a Rainmaker, I'm on the scene, I'm coming to you with all this epicness of research information and things like that. You're either going to add a dimension that I didn't see, or you're going to validate. So now you have two experts, one inside the business and one outside the business, that are basically validating that this product is even worth making, saving us a crap load of money versus, writing the wrong book, making the wrong product. For heaven's sakes, we see that all the time too.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think to that point, it's, a lot of people say like, well, what if during the market research, something comes up where it's not what we expect, right? Because we create it based on our assumptions, but we need to be open to like the real data. And so I'll say, at that point, like, yeah, we'll need to adjust some things. We'll need to, look at what we're doing. And, what's interesting about that too is I understand that people value what we provide. And obviously I'm super excited about that. And at the end of the day, like, we can always make our best recommendations, but it is your job as the CEO, as the business owner, to make a call, or to be able to know your business enough to say like, this is like a little bit off. I think we need to move in this direction or whatever. And so I think that's also what comes from like a really good partnership when we have with our clients, is when they bring their knowledge to the table. They don't solely rely on ours, but we are that added resource, that additional vantage point. And so when people use us like that to their advantage, we create stellar products. But when people are just like, you do everything, I mean, we can only do so much, with what we have, and we'll create a great product, but I can't guarantee that this is spot on exactly what people are looking for, because, at the end of the day, like, your people probably better.
It's your business. Yep. Yep, 100%. I don't know if you know this, but I owned a marketing agency for years, and so I have complete empathy from what you're communicating. But it's the irony is what you're experiencing, even as an outside vendor to these businesses. Most often, a lot of internal marketing leaders will experience the same level of friction, where their CEO or executive team will dump and run. So it's like they don't impart or transfer this kind of institutional knowledge and this wisdom that they've gained before this person was on the scene. They're like, oh, a marketing expert is here, you're going to make all the choices. And like, to your point, man, what a missed opportunity, because it's in that beautiful collaboration. Like, that's one of my favorite parts. Like, literally starting anything new, whether it's a marketing campaign or a new product or like literally anything. My favorite phase is that like joint collaborative experience between vendor or staff or whatever, where everybody's just bringing this like fresh perspective and this like enthusiasm for something new, which has that novelty factor. And like, you're all contributing to creating something new together in this kind of co-creation experience. But I can imagine either you on the experiencing side, like a client who doesn't do that with you, or I would also say internal staff members when they don't have CEOs or executive team members who want to like brainstorm Ted Lasso style and want to co-create. What a missed opportunity for probably the best idea coming from multiple minds versus just one.
Yeah. And I will say, like, just transparently speaking, when I think through all of the different client relationships that we've had, like, the best have come from people that do know how to delegate, communicate, be really thoughtful. They're not like putting 1,000% ownership on us. Like, they understand that they have to come to the table with certain things, and we come to the table with those other pieces. And it's typically when it's somebody who dumps and runs or they think they're communicating what they need, or they just have like really wild expectations sometimes. And I think it's a good lesson for anybody who's working with any type of vendor or agency, or, it's like, again, and this is why we stress this too during kickoff, is like, think of us as an extension of your team. and how can we work together for this? Because as much as this is a done for you, experience and service, it is going to be something truly extraordinary when you're able to be fully present with it as well. It doesn't mean you have to do all the work. That's not what we're asking, but we want your attention and we want you to really help us shape the way that this is formed, because that's how it's going to be something really amazing and more custom and personalized to you.
Yeah, no, 100%, like 100%. And yeah, ownership on all parts.
Yeah.
Ownership on all parts is just really, really important. And usually when I remember as an agency owner, like usually when I would work with a client who was more on the dumping run side, and I'm not saying this because they're a bad person. I'm saying this because it's usually a state of being. So when there would be a CEO or a client that would be in that mindset that they rather just like, here, just take it from me, it was more because they were in a state of burnout
Mm-hmm.
and they just didn't have any creative juices to give, which is it makes me so sad versus working with somebody that still has gas in the tank to play. And that's the same true for teams. Okay, so you're saying, hey, marketers at the very beginning, all day, every day.
Yeah.
Do you want them in the messy middle? Where would you like them back on the scene for what you do in making this epic product?
Good question. So what's interesting to me is when sometimes marketers have been involved in the entire process, sometimes it's to their benefit, they're looking at it from the perspective of marketing and not fulfillment or delivery. And that's, I think, where there could be a little bit of an issue, is when the focus is on how to position something, how to sell something, pre-selling it, all the things. But then the biggest issue that can come up in that on the other end of the spectrum is making sure that we're actually meeting the needs and selling what we're promising, and putting as much focus on that. Because yes, marketing and selling your course is super important. I want people to think about that. And usually when we work with people, I say, like, while we're creating this course, because it's going to take some time, because everybody wants everything yesterday. I'm like, while we create this course, you're coming to me and you're telling me that you don't have a super hot audience, or you don't really have a launch plan and this and that. You don't necessarily need your course to be created right here and like right in this moment, because you don't even have a viable way of selling it. You don't even know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, so use the time that we're creating your course to warm up your audience, get a solid pool of leads, like have a launch plan. So that way, when it is done, you have people to sell it to. You're not like scrambling at the very end. And I think it's, the impatience of entrepreneurs, obviously, like we all have it, to like put it out there yesterday and you have the idea and you want to see it go live. But I mean, great things take time. And especially too, when you are creating a course for the first time, like, especially if you're not even working with somebody professionally to do it, there is so much that goes into course creation. And so if you add that on top of launch planning, which is already a lot, and
Yeah.
marketing and the marketing plans and all of that, like it is, and this is why I usually discourage a lot of people from pre-selling courses when they've never made one before, because at
Ooh.
that point, yeah, I that's like my
Say it.
least
Say
favorite
it.
advice, because you're setting yourself up for disaster. Because imagine you pre-sell your course, you have this great launch, and then now you have all these people that are waiting to go through your program in a month, and now you're like, okay, now I have to create this. And imagine now you're creating it and you're like, fuck, I need more time with this, or this isn't turning out the way that I expected, or wow, the scope of this is totally changing. And then all of a sudden the quality starts to dwindle towards the end. You could tell, like towards the end, they're just burnt out, they're tired, they're just trying to put it out there because they
True.
promise people. And then at the end of the day, your people go through the experience. Maybe it starts out strong, and then towards the end, it's just kind of meh. And then from there, it's like, okay, now what? You don't have raving fans of this program. You feel like you have to completely redo what you've just done, which is a huge time suck, and people are usually burnt out by then. Or the opposite end of that, people pre-sell their courses and then they never deliver them, or they come to us and they're like, I've promised these people this course for so long and I haven't done it and I need this done ASAP. And it's like, I understand the position that you're in, but like you need to slow down to speed up, because this is not the way it's done. And
Get it.
long-term revenue comes from a high quality product. So I'm not
Yes.
saying that you put marketing to the side. It should go alongside with it. You need to have a great product, and you have to have a really great way to get it out there into the market. And if one of those is missing, like something's going to drop.
That's so fascinating because I completely agree with you, which is often when I'm like, I mean, this being in my world, like when I'm architecting a team, I try to separate out the leaders or the owners of the prospect's experience versus the customer's experience, because exactly how you articulated it, you need two keepers. If it's one and the same, it's like serving two masters. I need somebody to rally and advocate for the prospect and what they're
Mhm.
needing, what's missing in the marketplace that we could really fill and really serve. But then anybody has to really care about the integrity in which your product fulfilled on the promises that marketing made.
Yeah.
So you have to have that customer keeper, the one that's like, hey, we promised this or we said this. I'm not seeing it on the other side.
Yeah.
And too often it is just the marketers who are influencing and making the product and not the customer at the
Yeah.
heart of it. But I will tell you, I can spot those companies a mile away because their only marketing plan is direct response.
Yeah.
It's just add, sell, done, add, sell, done.
Yeah.
It's just cold advertising and selling. And so there's more emphasis on new sales and new revenue versus the concern and the emphasis on fulfillment and repeat customers and word of mouth and referrals. Because, like, man, one person's amazing experience, like one person eating at a restaurant and loving it and then telling 15 of their friends when they get home or blasting it on social media, like that does how much work for the marketing team. There goes zero customer acquisition costs
Yeah.
if you have the right product.
Yes.
And so you're 100% on. Like, I think too often the pendulum swings where marketing is the only influence on product. And that's not a good balance either. I couldn't agree with you more.
So a couple of things on that.
Get it.
I actually just saw this weekend, a sales call came through, and we asked a question like, why do you want to work with DreamPro, whatever. And somebody was like, oh my gosh, your client so-and-so cannot stop raving about you. I need to have a call with you. Like, and we, mind you, this person right now is in the first phase of our project, which honestly is usually the most, usually the most difficult for our clients,
Sure.
because
Sure.
this is the part of the process where we're extracting everything they know from their
Yeah.
brain, which is it's just a lot,
Yeah.
And at the same time, this is also now when this person has given us a great referral. So like, wow, that is awesome. Client experience, A plus. A couple of things I want to touch on. So something that has really helped us in our own digital offerings is, because obviously we want to practice what we preach. One of our instructional designers is an internal instructional designer for us. Basically, we're her client. And so she develops all of our offerings for us. So we are a client of our agency.
Oh,
She
wow.
helps with
Oof.
that. We pair her with our Rainmaker, so Avery, who you know, and so what's cool is the way that we work in developing our offerings is it's always like me, visionary. Molly is sort of the how is this going to happen, from a process standpoint, from a fulfillment standpoint, and Avery's okay, how do we need to market it? And Avery and Molly talk all the time about our offerings in terms of upselling, downselling, what
Oh,
we're creating,
yes.
and that's the lens that we take things
Okay.
through now. And I know this is tugging at your heartstrings. Like it's super helpful for me because I present them with the ideas, and Molly can say realistically, like, here's how we can do it. This is how the team can fulfill this. And Avery is there saying, okay, based on that, like, what's the timing? And so it's really, really, really helpful as a CEO to be able to also, even though I'm, for instance, we just did a workshop and I was the subject matter expert in terms
Sure.
of content. Like I was the one delivering it. This was all brand new stuff that I've never taught before. And so I leaned on my team, one, for help with, obviously instructional design and making sure that we have everything we need there. Leaned on Avery for,
Mhm.
what we're selling in the future. And that just really helped me stay in my lane in terms of I'm going to show up to this workshop, give it my
Yep.
all, and
Yep.
the team has my back. They're going to
Yep.
be able to do everything else. And that's really the value of our service too, is if you're a content creator, course creator, it's like, let us be that partner, because you don't need to do all the things in that area too, because product development in itself, a lot of people look at the cost sometimes and are like, oh man, this is an investment. I'm like, yeah, we're creating an additional stream of income for you. So, I mean, think about that. Like, that's where the value comes in,
Well, and it's so crazy because, I mean, in the online space, we complain about the cost of making a product, but like
Yeah.
any other business vertical, any other industry, like just this weekend, we went to this epic like water park. They basically made all these huge and floaties and things on the lake. So the marketing team has been doing behind the scenes content on their social media for a year leading up to the grand opening, because that's what you get to do. You get to like really talk about behind the scenes or the work in progress as they're building out this thing. But that thing, before they even open the door, was like $500,000 to $1 million by the time you're done with like
Yeah.
all of the upfront costs. So like when we complain about digital product cost, I'm like, like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, this is
It's the
ridiculous. It's
same
just
thing.
crazy.
It's a product. And people talk about passive income, this and that. The
Yeah.
difference is you're creating the product on the front end. You're doing the work first and getting paid later, as opposed to services where you typically get paid first and then you deliver
Yes.
later. It's just
Yes.
flipped, but
Yes.
there's work.
Yes.
There's a
Yes.
lot of work.
Yes. Okay, so let me go back to the dream team that you have. So it's
Yeah.
you're visionary, you're the queen bee, and your team is very clear on how they, in their own unique lanes, support you, protect you, so that you don't have to overly extend yourself into other things that they can do for you, whether that's marketing the product, making the product, and you like being that subject matter expert. That's I just want I just wanted to take a pause because it can happen for anybody, for team members and CEOs who are listening. It can happen. There are these trifectas, there are these dream teams that do exist. I'm surrounded by them in the
Yeah.
work that I do, but sometimes there's a CEO that's like, I tried and I can't.
It
So
takes
like,
time,
yeah.
so Molly, who's our instructional designer, she's been on the team for almost 3 years now.
Okay.
And so her role has shifted over time. Avery, I've known for a long time before she even worked with me, and even her role has evolved drastically. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's funny that you say clarity, because I just had a conversation. The past few months have been all about role clarity with my team because we're moving so quickly. And there's just been so many in a good way. It's like everybody's jumping in, but they're jumping on top of each other. And so I also don't want to portray that this has been smooth sailing,
No,
because
no,
it's
of
like
course.
it's one of those things that has evolved, but we have so many conversations about it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think ultimately, though, the cool thing is like everybody understands like the role is for me to get out of doing all the little things, because I don't do them as well as everybody else. As much as I like to think that I did, I remember I was in Kajabi the other day and I was like, I'll just do this real quick. And what a mess I created just from being in there for 2 minutes. And it was just another like, okay, I need to get out of this. Like, let them do
Mm-hmm.
their thing. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
have a way better place to be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also one of those things too where we have a team of about 20 people.
Whoa.
We have,
Yeah.
yeah, and we have about 7 full-time employees, and the rest like contractors, like mostly like fullish
Mm-hmm.
time, if you will, because our full-time is like 30-35 hours a week. But
Mm-hmm.
like, it's taken a lot of balance, but I think it's also the best work comes from us really working together on a joint solution and making that the focus and having those priority areas, because I am an idea machine, like, and it is to the point of probably fault. And my team has learned how to like ask me to be really specific about like what our real intention is. And this is something that also, even just working with our clients too, like I try to get really clear with them on like, hey, is this a priority for you? Like, tell me a little bit more about that, because especially creating a course or a product, it's going to take a lot of time,
Mm-hmm.
energy, it's going to take resources. And so you want to make sure, especially if you're going to work with an agency like us, like, is it going to be worth the investment? Like, are you going to want to sell this years down the line? If the answer is yes, and this is a core part of your business, like, absolutely. But if it's not, like, honestly, don't waste your time, because it
Yeah.
takes too much energy to do
Yeah.
that.
I just appreciate I appreciate working with people who are just upfront.
Yeah.
Like I more often than not I tell people we are not a fit to work with
Hmm.
than I do the opposite. And that always like it's hard because you're like, like you want to grow, like there's the part of you that wants to grow your business, but at the same time, you're not going to go outside of your integrity and not be congruent with your values. So if you really don't think that you're like the right fit for somebody, then you can't sleep at night if you don't actually say
Yeah.
the truthful thing, at least for me. Right. And so
Yeah.
obviously you're that type of person too. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's go to the end. The product is we're baking it. It's easy
Yeah.
bake oven. It's not easy, but like it's baking. We're getting like when should marketing ideally from your perspective step back in? When does the Rainmaker or the marketing influence come back in?
I would say middle slash towards the end of the project. And when I say jump in, it's not into the creation of the product, but more of like preparing for it to go to market. So I think, depending on the Rainmaker's involvement in the business and just being able to look at, I should say, in terms of the product itself, looking at it from the lens of the person who's taking it, if they can wear that specific hat versus the marketer hat, absolutely go through the course, like check out everything, make sure it aligns with how you're selling it. Like, yes. And then towards the end, it's really about the go to market strategy. So, is this going to be a live launch? Is this going to be something that's, put on the back end of something else going on in the business? I think a lot of people rely on us in a bad way to guide them, because there's like, we can provide you with a strategy, we can provide you with a plan, we can provide you with a funnel,
Mm-hmm.
all the things, but it is the ownership of the business owner and the Rainmaker and whoever to be able to say, this is how this fits into the bigger picture of what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing as a company and
Mm-hmm.
what makes the most sense. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're not informed of how to do that, then yeah, let's talk about that even deeper. But, being able to roll that out, I think, is important. And also, when it comes to digital courses, we definitely have people that launch their courses and they get great return on investment, have stellar launches from the start. And then we have people that don't. And that's totally
Mm-hmm.
normal. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not like sometimes it's a goal to just break even for people, right? The first time they launch. And then after that, it's okay, how do we test? How do we make sure that this is a funnel that converts before we, throw ad spend onto it and all of
Mm-hmm.
that? So I think the Rainmaker, it's really your sweet spot to figure out how this goes to market, but also collect some really great data so that way you can duplicate and change the results and figure out where it goes from there. Because people sell courses in so many different ways, and there's no right or wrong way. It's for you to decide of what's best for your business. But yeah, that's, I think, where the biggest expertise comes in.
No, I completely agree. And like, again, just having that balcony perspective where you have a player like a Rainmaker, like this marketing influencer leader within the organization to be able to get back on that balcony perspective, to zoom back out. Cause like, this is the danger of having too many people do too many things. Like when you are so in the trenches of the doing, whether it's product making or marketing execute, it doesn't really matter what the doing is. I'm just saying, like when you're in the weeds of the doing and the execution, your perspective of the business is like 6 feet in the trenches of just like trying to survive. And I don't love using World War I examples here, but like it feels like that. It feels like there's just things flying everywhere and it's chaotic and it's noisy and there's just a lot. And so
Yeah.
one of the perks, by the way, the CEO's in that mess too. And so like there is no general. There is nobody to like there's just who's looking at everything. Now even in like football games, you have the people all the way on the very top of the stadiums who are looking at the perspective from that advantage point versus the coach on the field. Like there's benefit to having different layers of an organization or business, even if you're a small business owner, because you can't offset the perspective of being on that balcony. So having, like you said, towards the end of the completion, towards the end of the product, okay, like let's line up on timelines. Even if I go to market and I have that dialed in as a product going to be ready, like there has to be a lot of communication, but I need to also be able to have space, or I'm in a position to get out of the weeds, out of the trenches of the business so that I can see what's really going on. If not, it's really difficult to be successful when your viewpoint is so limited.
And then I would say from there, once it like launches, something that my team has been doing a really great job of is like Molly and Avery will come together, and Molly looks at things from like the client ecosystem in terms of what makes sense based on their needs. And then Avery looks at it from the marketing perspective. Okay, if a person, logically can go from our services to our membership, like what does that look like? How do we need to communicate that value to them? Like, and so, the great thing about courses as well is they can be such a great way to create community within your business. Like, so for instance, we have some people that join our courses, join our membership, and that's where they play, that's where they get value. It's perfect. Then we have some people that join and then they're like, wow, I love how this looks. There's no way on this earth. I can do this myself. I see the value in what you provide. Let me be a client. And then we have clients that work with us. And actually, a lot of them have then joined our community to just stay involved with us and learn how to grow their businesses, et cetera. And so what we try to do too is just think about like how this whole ecosystem works together from the benefit of our clients. So that way, as we really, really understand their needs and just the trends of like what people are experiencing, like our client avatar has changed so much over the past few years as our services have gotten a little bit more expensive, as our team has grown, as our capabilities have grown. And so now we're starting to see different types of people come into our world. And so now we're like, oh, okay, these people actually need this now. And so like, where does that fit in? And so courses and creating memberships or whatever it might be are also a great way to create more community within your ecosystem. And as a Rainmaker, it's a great opportunity to say, hey, like where, from product fit standpoint, like where does this fit into the greater picture? And also like, how can we continue to help people with what we have and use that after we launch?
Yeah. And then a great community will sell for you, making a Rainmaker's job easier. I mean, it's the cycle. Yeah. It's like life that gives life. It's just this beautiful regenerative kind of cycle for the business. This conversation has been invaluable to me because there are some really messy business lanes happening where marketers feel the burden of being more than what they should. And they've never had somebody go, you should not do this. You should do this. Yeah. And so I think listening to this conversation is extremely fruitful, both for a CEO who has maybe a smaller team where everybody's doing a little bit of everything, but also for marketing leaders who, need more insight into how they can show up best during different stages of business growth or product development. So I really just want to thank you for coming on the podcast and having this dialogue. I also want people to work with you like immediately. So what gifts do you have to share, or where can people hang out with you? Like send them, like help them get to you, because this is like a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. So everything can be found on our website, dreamprocourses.com. We're on Instagram, DreamPro Courses. I also have a podcast, the Dreamers Lounge podcast. I've had a lot of great content on there. We're on a little bit of a break right now. I might be back in the future, but there's a ton of episodes to binge and great value there. But yeah, check it out. Obviously, we have our own digital offerings, services, you name it. But I've created so much free content. So if you are curious about anything, just start on our website. It'll take you in every direction you need to go in.
Well, that's a beautiful thing about free content. It just has a shelf life forever and ever. So, well, thank you, Ariel. I really genuinely appreciate this. This is a really fruitful conversation for all the reasons, and I just
thank you for having
appreciate you being very transparent about your team structure, how you operate, how that can be an example to others. Sometimes we don't get to see behind the scenes or hear how exactly the dynamic is working. So thank you for being on today's Rainmaker podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Rainmaker podcast. We believe you can't get real results or have real relationships that last without being real first. If you resonated with today's episode, leave us a review so we can keep serving up the truth and tips that help you become the empowered leader that I know that you are. And always head over to veronicarami.com to check out all the free resources I have for you and the show notes from this episode. Until next time, my friends.